The UK is quietly falling apart and nobody wants to talk about it. Businesses are shutting down, communities are hollowing out, property values are tanking overnight, thousands are already gone. These are the 10 cities that are emptying out the fastest. Number 10. Wolverhampton. Wolverhampton sits at the northern edge of the West Midlands conurbation, and in theory it benefits from proximity to Birmingham. In practice, that proximity acts more as a drain than a boost. Residents with spending power migrate toward Birmingham rather than building economic activity in Wolverhampton. The result is a city hollowing out quietly while appearing on the surface to remain urban and active. The Indices of Deprivation 2025 identify multiple Wolverhampton wards in the worst national decile for income, employment and health simultaneously. Some inner-city neighbourhoods rank in the top 7% most deprived in England. The PwC and Demos Quality of Life assessments place Wolverhampton in the bottom tier of major UK cities, and Centre for Cities data shows high street vacancy rates that have remained stubbornly elevated even as parts of the wider Midlands have shown limited recovery. Inner-city property looks cheap against the national average, but the buyer pool, working-age professional households, who would normally absorb residential stock in a recovering market, is not growing. For investors drawn by apparent yield, honest modelling of older housing stock costs and a constrained tenant market is required before those numbers are treated as achievable returns. Number 9. Doncaster. Doncaster built its identity on coal and steel. Both are gone. What remains is the economic legacy of that collapse, which the Indices of Deprivation 2025 continue to record in wards, sitting in the worst national decile for income, employment and health. Low income constrains local spending, low employment shrinks the tax base, and poor health outcomes drive dependency on services the local economy cannot adequately fund. High street vacancy rates have persisted above regional averages for years. The retail infrastructure was built for a spending base that has since contracted. Doncaster benefits from genuine road and rail strategic value, and logistics employment has grown in the region. But distribution centre workers spend online and at out-of-town retail parks, not on high streets. The structural misalignment between available employment and the spending required to sustain the town centre has not been resolved. Inner residential property has not appreciated meaningfully in real terms since 2020, and the demand drivers that would reverse that picture are not yet visible in the data. Number 8. Oldham. Oldham is a former mill town on the eastern edge of Greater Manchester that has never converted its proximity to Manchester into a genuine economic advantage. The contrast with Salford and Trafford, both inside Greater Manchester and both with stronger trajectories, shows that nearness to a major city is not sufficient if economic energy pulls toward the centre, rather than feeding the periphery. The Indices of Deprivation 2025 identify Oldham as one of the most deprived local authority areas in England, with wards in the worst decile for income, employment, education and health in the inner town. The high street vacancy rate reflects a spending base that has not recovered and structurally may not. Manchester's offer is close enough to attract residents with spending capacity, consistently stripping economic energy from Oldham's own town centre. Property is inexpensive. The buyer pool is either not present or choosing better connected South Manchester alternatives. Greater Manchester's growth story has not reached Oldham and shows no clear sign of doing so. The cities still to come include one where Centre for Cities specifically measured the rate at which retail spending bleeds to a neighbouring city every single week. There is a town whose entire industrial identity triggered emergency Saturday legislation in Parliament in April 2025. And there is a place where deprivation measures have remained in the worst national category across multiple consecutive assessment cycles. Subscribe right now and hit the notification bell. The information in the top 5 is where the data becomes genuinely alarming. Number 7. Birkenhead. Birkenhead sits across the Mersey from Liverpool and has for decades failed to convert geographic proximity to a major city into economic momentum. Liverpool has enjoyed a genuine cultural and economic revival over the past 20 years. Birkenhead has not shared in that revival proportionally. According to Centre for City's 2025 retail analysis, Birkenhead loses 7.5% of its high street spending directly to Liverpool every single week, a structural drain that is persistent, measurable, and not improving. The vacancy rate in Birkenhead town centre sits among the highest in the northwest, and Centre for Cities places it among towns where the high street has failed structurally, a permanent contraction of the spending base relative to available retail space. The Indices of Deprivation 2025 place Birkenhead's inner wards in the worst national decile across income, employment, and health. Younger residents with employment options continue choosing Liverpool, compressing both economic activity and long-term residential demand. Property prices are low. The question for any buyer is whether low price and structural spending decline can combine into genuine long-term value. Number 6. Great Yarmouth. Great Yarmouth presents a coastal variant of the structural decline visible in former industrial towns. The economic base was never heavy industry. It was tourism, seasonal service employment, and offshore oil and gas. Domestic seaside tourism has declined for decades. Seasonal employment creates income instability, and that instability cannot generate the consistent spending a year-round high street or a stable residential property market requires. The offshore energy sector provided significant employment during its peak years. That employment has contracted as the UK's oil and gas sector faces sustained structural pressure. The Indices of Deprivation 2025 place Great Yarmouth among the most deprived local authority areas in England, with wards in the worst national decile for income and employment. Net population trends show more people leaving than arriving, disproportionately in younger working-age cohorts, who represent both the economic engine of any town and the future buyer pool for residential property. Property is cheap in absolute terms, but cheap and good value are not the same thing when the fundamental drivers of price appreciation point consistently in only one direction. Number 5. Mansfield. Mansfield in Nottinghamshire is a post-mining town that has not found a convincing economic identity in 3 decades since the pits closed. The Indices of Deprivation 2025 rank it among the most deprived districts in the East Midlands, with wards in the worst national decile for income and employment. The high street vacancy rate has been persistently elevated for years, reflecting a mismatch between available retail space and the spending capacity of the local population. Too many shops for the number of people who can afford to use them. Proximity to Nottingham compounds the problem. It mirrors the dynamic visible in Wolverhampton and Oldham. Access to a nearby major city functions as a spending drain, not a rising tide. Residents with discretionary income travel to Nottingham rather than spending locally. The experiential economy that has kept other town centres viable has not established itself in Mansfield at the required scale to replace departed anchor retailers. Property is inexpensive, but investment buyers need to model void periods, maintenance costs on older terrace stock, and a constrained tenant pool before treating gross yield figures as achievable net returns. Number 4. Rotherham. Rotherham's story carries the weight of 2 separate crises: the collapse of the steel industry across decades and a period of deep institutional failure in the 2010s that damaged its civic standing in ways no regeneration master plan quickly repairs. Both feed into a property market and a population dynamic. The data in 2026 continues to record unfavourably. The Indices of Deprivation 2025 identify multiple Rotherham wards in the worst national decile for income and employment. Centre for Cities data shows retail spending patterns consistent with a local economy where disposable income is structurally constrained. The town centre vacancy rate has not meaningfully improved. Sheffield's proximity acts as an outflow mechanism. Residents with the means to access Sheffield's employment and retail offer do so permanently, removing economic energy from Rotherham's own base. The advanced manufacturing park at Waverley represents genuine industrial investment nearby, but the gap between that investment and meaningful improvement in the residential property market and town centre remains wide. Number 3. Scunthorpe. Scunthorpe is the clearest case on this list of a town whose economic foundation was removed by a single publicly documented industrial crisis. In March 2025, British Steel's Scunthorpe plant, the only facility in the United Kingdom still producing steel from raw iron ore, announced plans to close, placing up to 3,500 direct jobs at immediate risk. The Chinese owner Jingye Group cited losses of £700,000 per day. Parliament was recalled from Easter recess on a Saturday in April 2025 to pass emergency legislation, the Steel Industry Special Measures Act, handing the government operational control to keep the blast furnaces running. The immediate closure was averted. The underlying crisis has not been resolved. Scunthorpe's entire economic identity has been tied to that plant for generations. Residents facing potential redundancy do not buy property. Businesses serving a contracting workforce do not invest. The economic multiplier runs in reverse. Until a credible, operational replacement for steelworks employment is confirmed at scale, the Scunthorpe property market will reflect that uncertainty with uncomfortable accuracy. Number 2. Merthyr Tydfil. Merthyr Tydfil in South Wales has held a position near the top of the UK's deprivation measures for longer than almost any other place on this list. The Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation 2025 shows that 72% of the town's areas fall within the most deprived half in Wales, one of the highest concentrations in any local authority in the country. The collapse of coal and steel stripped this town of its economic foundation in the 70s and 80s, and Merthyr has been managing the aftermath for over 4 decades without resolution. 4 decades have not resolved the structural problem. They have entrenched it. Income, employment, health and education deprivation overlap in Merthyr's wards in a pattern that makes economic reversal extremely difficult. The average salary sits at approximately £27,400 per year, nearly 18% below the national average. The average property price sits around £157,000, well below national figures, but low price in an economy this constrained is not automatically value. The town loses working-age residents to Cardiff, Swansea and destinations outside Wales entirely. The honest question for buyers drawn in by low entry prices is whether the demand-side fundamentals have any realistic prospect of turning within a credible investment horizon. In Merthyr Tydfil in 2026, the data does not provide an encouraging answer. The number 1 city is the place where every major independent measure in 2026 converges. The Welsh Government's own deprivation index flags it in a category reserved for areas of deep-rooted, multi-generational decline. Centre for Cities identifies structural retail failure. Population data shows consistent net loss year on year. If you own property there, or are considering it, what follows is the most important data you will encounter today. Make absolutely sure you are subscribed so you never miss analysis like this. Number 1. Rhyl. Rhyl in North Wales sits at the intersection of every negative indicator that defines structural urban decline, and it does so more acutely than almost any other town in the United Kingdom. The Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation 2025 identifies 3 separate areas within Rhyl as being in a state of deep-rooted deprivation, meaning they have appeared in the most deprived categories across multiple consecutive assessment cycles. Only a handful of locations in the entire country hold that designation. Rhyl holds 3. The vacancy rate on Rhyl's high street reflects the collapse of the seaside tourism economy that once sustained this town. Unlike some coastal towns that have repositioned through arts investment or retirement migration, Rhyl has not made that transition. The built environment reflects the failure. Derelict seafront infrastructure, vacant retail units, and residential properties subdivided into low-quality housing serve a population with severely limited economic agency. Vacancy is the visible symptom. That index places Rhyl's inner wards in the worst decile in Wales across income, employment, health and housing quality simultaneously. Population trends show consistent net loss as younger residents leave for Wrexham, Chester and beyond. The demographics that remain skew older, lower income and more benefit dependent. Crime rates in Rhyl's inner areas rank among the highest in North Wales. A regeneration board, called Our Rhyl, has been established with £20 million in UK government funding. Welcome investment, but it is modest against the scale of structural decline the data describes. Cheap property in Rhyl is not value. The price reflects demand, and demand reflects a structural reality no announcement has yet addressed. These 10 cities are not written off. People live in them, communities endure, and some will find their way through. But structural decline is not sentiment, it is data. The Indices of Deprivation 2025 Centre for Cities Retail Analysis and ONS population figures identify where the pressures are highest in the United Kingdom right now. If you own property in any of these places, you have the numbers. If you are considering buying anywhere in the UK, understand what these patterns look like before they reach your postcode. Property is a long-term decision. Make it using evidence, not optimism from someone who needs to sell you something. Subscribe and share this with anyone making a housing decision in 2026, and we will see you in the next one.